Yes, we are. All right, so we started off with this guy last video, and this is where we got. So this is a couple of them that I showed that we were going to do like that or something like that. You got a lot of freedom on how you do whatever you want to do. So I left you with some homework. This is where we got last time. We got, no, that ain't it. This is the one we did. So this is the one I did beforehand. And this is the one we started on. So I was doing the one with the square head, not doing the one with inserted head. I know you're doing it, Steve, separately, so maybe I'll touch on a little bit of that. So we got one leg almost completely done with his bulging hand inside the pocket, and the arm we started on. And so hopefully you did a little bit of homework, but if you didn't, no big deal. I'm going to start right from this point, and we'll just continue from there. Number one, wear all your safety gear. If you don't have safety gear, get some, because it's a good idea. You don't want to get hurt. You don't want to get injured, because that just takes away carving time. So make sure you've got safety gear. You use a safety machine like a bandsaw or a scroll saw or anything like that. Make sure you understand, read, and follow the instructions. I don't want anybody to get hurt on my watch, so let's make sure we don't. And anytime you're doing this, make sure you wear protective gear. I always wear protective gear. I've got a thumb guard that I use, the little rubber tips on the fingers of the garden gloves that you get, and then I wrap it in tape. I got a couple layers of tape. I've got stuff on this finger and stuff on this finger, so I protect my finger. Because when I'm carving, I get a little close when I'm carving, so sometimes my knife gets a little close to that finger, and having that extra protection is really nice for you not to have to worry about it. So we carved out a little bit of the belly. We started working on the legs. Here's what we got to make sure we're keeping up with. We're not trying to be perfectly symmetrical, but we got to follow some kind of symmetry. So if I got a really skinny arm up here and a really fat arm down here, it don't look right. So I got to make sure I'm doing that. So just to keep myself straight, I'm going to draw a middle line. This is the middle of the arm. If I was rounding it, this would be the top spot. So if I'm rounding this from one side to the other, that's going to be the part that stays up on top. If I'm carving, I want to leave that line. And I do that with a lot of things. Same way with the belly and the legs. Same way with the legs here. I got a line here. I want to know where that middle line is. And so the homework was to make this leg look like this one. Hopefully you did. If not, I'm going to take some time and I'll do mine that way. And I use a variety of different knives. This is the OCC brand. I really like the handle. It really fits comfortably. And the blades are really good. I just noticed that Mountain Wood Carvers I think they're in Minnesota or Wisconsin. Chris Willick runs Mountain Wood Carvers. They just got a new shipment of OCC knives if you want them. They don't make these anymore. It's been bought out by another company, but I like them. I got two of them, and I use them a lot. I got the 2-inch, and I got the 1.5 inch. I'm not trying to sell you knives. Go use whatever you want. But just these work for me, and everybody always asks when I'm carving what I'm using. So anyway, I'm going to clean up a few spots here on this leg, the one that we started last time. And I'm just taking some of these fuzzies out of here because they got to come eventually. They got to come off, and all I'm doing, besides getting outside of the camera, all I'm doing is just going in here and cleaning out some of these little fuzzies down here. So when you're doing a lot of heavy carving, you're going to leave fuzzies somewhere because you're heavy and you're in a hurry. I'm just doing a little bit of cleanup right here, so bear with me a couple minutes. I got a great big roll down here, and I have to trim that a little bit because it looks goofy if it's too big. But then again, this guy looks goofy anyway, so we can have a little bit of fun with him and make him look kind of awkward. About like I did when I first started trying to date. I think the girl stayed away from me because I must have been the awkwardest guy they'd ever seen. Red curly hair and big mouth. I didn't know how to talk to girls. Alright, starting on that. So what I got, you see that foot, I've got the sole cut in. I've got the difference between the front and the heel. We carved around. We've got a cuff right here. We'll strengthen it to make it stick out a little bit more, but I just wanted to put that in there. So now we're going to go on this leg too. So trying to make them both about the same width. If you're not sure, and you're constantly getting things in different sizes, get you a cheap pair of these little calipers, because I can measure how big this leg is, how thick it is, and I can make sure the same thickness over here. So this one runs, if I were drawing the lines, his leg goes like this right here along the top. So I want to follow that same line. Somewhere here in the middle of this leg, I want to draw that line up there too. So I'm going to try to keep that line together just like I did back here. I got that line over here. I want to keep this line right in the middle too. So that keeps me straight. It lets me know that my symmetry is going to stay where it needs to. So whether you use a knife or a fishtail gouge, or maybe you go to do that with a big old gouge, I could go ahead and do this with a gouge. This is a file, one of those Swiss made ones. They're heavy, and they're heavy metal, so they're great to work with. They're hard to sharpen sometimes. This will take off a lot of wood at any one time. I don't like taking it off in the middle. I like going to the outside, and so I'm going to start right there. Right about right here is where I started. So what I'm going to do, keep my tools out of the way. So what I'm going to do is just come down here, starting at the top of the leg, and I just want to take that off and take some of that size. It has a lot of bulk on it, so I want to take that down. And if you've carved with me before, you know I don't have a full thumb here. I've got half a thumb. So those guys that can carve and push with that thumb, I have a half a thumb, I can't do it. So I've got to carve a little bit different, and it works for me, and I can make it work. But you carve the best way you know how. My students always ask about my finger. When they feel bold enough or comfortable enough, they'll always say, "Don't mind me asking?" And I'll always try to answer their questions. And I get a lot of kids that ask how that happened, and I tell them a table saw. And for some, that's all they want to hear. They don't want to hear anymore, because that's, kind of awful thing to think about. Others will ask even more. How did it happen? Why did you do this? Why is that different? I try to answer their questions without being too morbid about it. But I also tell them, as grossed out as you are or whatever, I don't look at it that way. This accident that I had now gives me an opportunity to do things I wouldn't have done, or done it that way in the past. So you can sit and say, "Oh, I'm missing a finger or two, so I can't do this." Well, find a way you can. There's no reason to say I can't do it. Find a way to do it. Whether you find it easy or not, you'll feel better about finding a way to make it happen. So try to give them a life lesson along the way. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they hear 3 words and they're done. They've made up their minds, so no big deal. Anyway, so I use my thumb to hold. I can use it as a fulcrum. I just can't, there's no joint in there to be able to push. So anyway, so I carve a little bit different than a lot of other people do, and some people say I'm handicapped, and I'm going, no, I'm just different in more ways than one. So this works. Okay, so we're thinning down that leg. We're not, not even close, but go around to the front. Remember, I've got a cuff here, so when I carve, I want to stay above that cuff. I'm going to carve down to it, and I'm still staying above that cuff, because I want to leave some of it. It'll be a lot smaller than I make it right now, but I still want to leave enough wood there to do it with. So all I'm doing is going around in a kind of a circular motion, trim that leg down. I got to also understand that I've got a pocket here that I got to keep where it goes. So that's at the end of that arm. There's my center line for that. Started drawing the head on for somebody the last time we were here. I didn't get much of it drawn, but kind of got an idea of where it is. The front of the ear is about in the middle of the neck, unless you've got a weird shaped head up here. So we draw that in, and then if you want a sideburn, you put that in as well, and that gives you plenty of room to move this back and get an eye. Way off the screen, sorry. The front of the ear is right in the middle of that neck, and then the sideburn comes in front. And if you want eyeballs, you cut this back in your forehead. We'll get to that in a little bit. Whatever you're going to do with the chin, whether it's got mustache, beard, whatever you want. It's kind of hard to do the beard because we're clean cut right here to give you that goofy looking neck that we got. So anyway, I'm just simply, just for getting it started today, get into the flow, I'm just taking off this leg. And I got a lot of stuff to take off. I'm going to cut off that big knobby sticking out right there. Grab a fishtail gouge. If you don't use a fishtail gouge, the advantage of these are it cuts the same way. There's the cutting edge on that knife. There's the cutting edge on that tool as well. The difference is if I grab this, I'm holding it with my forearm will get tired after a while. If I do this, I tuck it into a couple of fingers. It's grabbed right there, and then that allows me to move, and now I'm moving my shoulder, which is a bigger muscle. So it gives me a chance to rest that hand a little bit, because if you're not used to doing this, then that hand is going to get real tired. And at some point when you're tired, you're going to drop a knife, or you're going to try doing something different than what you're used to doing, because you're used to carving one way. When your hand gets tired, you start to adjust, and then at some point you realize that ain't working, and then it flips around or does something you don't want it to do. So just be real careful when you do that. Nothing wrong with switching to a tool, nothing wrong with grabbing a different technique. Just make sure you're always being safe. Having had one hand accident, I don't want another one. But it seems like sometimes we get carried away. I know many people that unfortunately make mistakes and they end up cutting themselves, and they'll tell you everything they did wrong. They know exactly what they did wrong, and they'll say, well, I don't know why I did that. So get into the habit of doing it right, and you won't have to answer that question, why did you do it that way? So just saying. So we're getting it down a little bit. Not quite there yet. Feel free to ask questions, unmute or whatever, or pop into the chat. I'll try to monitor the chat every once in a while. I got a bad habit of forgetting about it. My fault, I'm sorry. I'm used to doing in-person classes, but I'll try to answer your question while I'm carving, if you got one. In fact, I'll check the chat real quick. Is there anything in the chat? Nothing there. All right. We're good. So I don't know how many of you are trying to carve along, but I apologize if that bothers you that I carve real fast. Well, fast relatively. I don't always carve real fast, but we're getting there. We're close. I know you hear a lot of carvers talk about carving clean. Well, you know, that's kind of hard for some people because they take off little ones, and so it's hard to carve clean when you're just shivering a little bit. It takes a long time. And then there's other people that carve really, really fast, but not very clean. So it's all your style. Whatever you feel comfortable doing. Don't worry about anybody criticizing your carving, whether you're going fast or slow. Carve the way you want. I look at it this way. This is my carving. I'm not carving it for anybody. Occasionally I sell a few, and occasionally I give them a few away, and occasionally I throw a few away. But you got to carve for you, and this is a hobby. And one of my good friends this morning, we were having a chat. We lost one of the carvers in our club just Monday night. He died of a massive heart attack, and so we were talking. He and I were talking, my other friend, and we were talking about, you know, if it ain't fun, why are you doing it? Why are you making a job? Well, I turned it into a business for me because I carve so much, I end up with carvings everywhere, and at some point you go, okay, why am I keeping all these carvings? Why not sell them or give them away or something like that? So he was getting on to me because I'm looking at this and that, and he says, it's just a hobby for me. I'm just a hobby carver. I don't really worry about professionalism or what everybody else is doing. I'm going to carve the way I want. And there's a healthy perspective there of you know, doing your own thing. Whether you wanted to make it real simple or real primitive or whatever you want to do your own thing, and that way nobody can gripe at you. Alright, I think we got that leg about the same size. If we look at it and we look straight down, we're about the same width here. We look down here, we're about the same width here. Maybe a few more cuts out of this side than that side, but we got there. And then if I were to draw, get my marker out instead of my pencil. If I'm going to draw a cuff on this one, here's the bottom of the cuff. Put it down to the bottom of the back of the shoe. See that? Move that knife out of the way. So I just follow from the bottom of the cuff to the bottom of the shoe. There's the bottom of the cuff going around. There's the bottom of the cuff there, and I'm going to follow the same line over here. I'm at an angle and it don't want to mark. Follow that same line so that it falls down to the same spot. And in the top of it, I'm going to do the same thing. Just make a line. Make that cuff big, because you might want to leave it big and you might want to make it smaller. But if you make it big, you can always make it smaller. Once you make that cut, you can't make it any bigger. I think I need a new pen. This one's got the end chewed out, which means that's an old one. Good, and ain't got no chew marks on it, so I haven't hardly ever used it. Alright, so make those lines kind of match one side to the other and front to back. So I got a little bit of line off there and I can't get in there, but that's alright. So anyway, I'll take a small V, sharp. Make sure you sharpen your tools on a regular basis. If you don't, all you're gonna do is cut wood badly. Okay, so here's the first one that we did, the leg that we did last meeting. So I just want to come around here and make that cuff. So all I'm doing is making the cuff on his legs. Maybe they're too long and you got them rolled up. Maybe they're too short and you want to bring in some high waters. Like this fella, he's got high waters because, you know, he's outgrown his britches. Same thing over here. I'm going to cut that in on the new one. Make sure those lines match. So I'll let you do that on your own time. I'll spend a few seconds on it right here. But just make sure that the lines match up, because if you go down, if this line goes down so far, it's hard to make it match around the back. And the back is where you can't really see it very well. So you got to be real careful. But I'm just cutting them in on both legs. This is the new leg. The other one we did the other day, 2 weeks ago today. And I'm just going to follow those lines. I can always cut them back in. I can always make them smaller, but I can't make them any bigger. What I got to do is make sure that line matches up. That one right there matches up over here, right here. So that line is going to come down, and I can barely see to get in there, but I can see just enough to follow that line right there and go down through there, come in, and make it match. And I've got it almost too high, but I can fix that here right directly. I can just follow that line right around here and make it match there. And I'll worry about that other cut later, but the bottom part of that cuff as well. So Alexander, you asked if you can get a picture of the guy to print it. I will put, trying to figure out where I got pictures. If you know how to take a screenshot, I can hold these here. The pattern is on my website, ericowensart.com. Glad you're with us, Alexander. I can't remember if I have pictures of this on my website, but I know I've got a picture of 4 of them that I finished. I'll put that up today before the day ends, if that'll help you. All right. So we're just cutting that cuff in. You use a sharp V tool, because if you don't, you're just going to crush that wood. But I'm just making the cut all the way around, so I know where it's at. I'm not going to do a whole lot with it. I mean, I've done the other leg, but now you know what I'm doing with that one. And I'm just making these cuts. So connect this one. This is the last one I have to connect. And I got to turn this one up a little more because I got this one too low. So I'm going to turn it up a little bit more to try to match. And what I'm doing is trying to make sure I'm trying to look straight down here where I'm seeing this one here. Get my hand out of the way. I'm trying to see that one and the cut on the back side where it matches. So it's not the easiest thing to do, but you just take your time and line it up. Once you get it lined up, you don't even have to see where you're going as long as you stay in the groove that you made. So I'm matching that groove right there with that groove I have in the bottom. Okay. Move some chips out of the way because they kind of get distracting. Okay. So let's finish this shoe like this one. Short knife on this one because I got a short throw here. What I'm going to do is, if you can see that, you can see that this one is thicker than that one. You can see that from right there. It's thicker this way and it's thicker that way. So to start off, I'm going to carve the top of the shoe. Because I want to leave this point right here on the end of the shoe. I want to leave that right there because that's where the shoe turns up at the end. And so a couple of whacks on getting to that point. And I'm going in and curving to the cuff because I want that shoe not to be just straight out. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to carve the shoes, and I could certainly do a whole lot of different ones. You look at the old Scandinavian flat plane masters, and their shoes were simple. I looked at one today. Somebody sent me an email, and I looked at it and I thought, that's a cool carving of an old man, and the shoes were just about as simple as they could be. You couldn't have made them any simpler because they didn't have anything but a point up here and a bottom to stand on. So they didn't cut in the sole, they didn't cut in the heel or anything like that, or that space there. They didn't cut any of that. They just left it flat. And so I don't know of anybody that's ever looked at one of my carvings and said they didn't like the shoes. So people like it. They like it for the whole thing it is. They don't pick it apart for one thing or another. This wood's getting a little bit dry here. Anyway, okay. So we got a rough idea of where it's at. I haven't fooled around with all the cuff around here. I got part of it, but now I'm going to do the bottom of the shoe, this sole right here. So I'm going to draw a real small line there, and about right here I'm going to have the heel. So that's the heel right there that I'm going to cut in. This will be negative space here. I'm going to follow this line. It goes up here at the heel. It goes up a little bit. So it'll be tucked in there, and I'm going to follow it around on this side. This is a line that I'm going to cut for the shoe. So right here is where the heel is. And if I draw a line straight across, I don't know if you can see that, draw a line straight across, I want them to match. See how that one's drawn straight across? I want these to match too. And then I'm going to come up here, and I can't really get back in here very well. I'm just going to have to play with it when I get there. See if I can do that. So let's cut that in. I'm going to make one cut right here at the back of this heel. Go straight in. Perpendicular. Then I'm going to come at about a 45-degree angle. And I want to show that what looks like negative space goes up under the foot. I didn't cut deep enough for that first piece. Okay, see that? That's what I want to cut in. Do it on the other side. Hopefully I matched it up. If not, now it's time to fix it. Go straight in. 45-degree angle, roughly. If it's 46, that's okay. Or 60. And I got the heel. Take my small V tool, and I want a long reach so that I can get back in here in between this other leg. And I'm starting at the front, and I'm going to go right along that line. One of the things I usually do before I do that is take this sharp edge off around the very edge. So I'm just going to trim that a little bit. That takes off the lines that I drew, and it makes it look like the shoes are a little bit worn. So they got some wear to them, where they don't just sit flat on the ground. Got a little lift to them for the front of the toe, and a little bit of wear out in the back. This wood does not want to cut today. I might have to spray it. Alright, so trim that, round that bottom, then come back in here with your V-tool and follow that line that you drew. Stay away from the edge over here, it'll break off. You want to stay with, kind of lay your knife a little bit this way so that you can protect that edge. I just want to go across, and this is cross grain, so number one, it'll be harder, and number two, you got to be careful with it because it can break off real easy. But what I just want to do, let me get that, get that part on the inside. Maybe we can see that. Can't get in there because of that angle, but you won't see it anyway. Okay, so we just brought that around. If you feel like it, you can come in here with a knife and you can deepen that groove and make a cut on the top that accentuates that sole that you took out. But the problem is, if you get too aggressive, you'll break it all off right there. This just made it a little deeper, is all it did. Made it more pronounced right in there. So I'm going to carve down, and I don't want to keep carving down because it'll split out. And I'm going to carve up to make sure it doesn't split out that way. That's what I'm aiming for. See, this was the original cut. This is what I'm doing with my knife to make that a little bit deeper. You may have to come back in here and cut this angle again a little bit deeper. That's okay. Not a problem. Okay. Alright, what I want to do now real quick, I just want to spend a couple minutes all around where the bottom of this cuff is. I want to take this extra wood off here. Again, I'm curling. I'm going in and curl so that I can come back and cut it off. It makes a very clean cut right at the bottom of that cuff. Just like that. It gives you that kind of a profile right in here. So it curls it and cleans it up. We'll do that all the way around, just cleaning up, taking care of your fuzzies. Here we're taking the time to work clean while we're doing it rather than put it off till later. Because I can tell you, when you're done, you want to be done. You don't want to sit here and piddle, play, and putter with the thing for hours. You're done. So if you can do some of that while you're carving all the way around, clean that up just a little bit. You don't need to take off much, but you're just cleaning it up. Now, some of you might want to use sandpaper. It's entirely up to you. I don't use a lot of sandpaper because I don't like leaving the sanding grit in the wood if I'm going to go back and carve it again at any time. It makes a lot of marks on my tools that I end up having to buff off. It doesn't take long. It's just one of those annoying things that you like your tools to look like they're supposed to look rather than looking goofy. So I cleaned this one up. I did this last one last time. We'll fix the areas that we saw earlier. Again, just cleaning up the bottom of that cuff, just so it looks like it's supposed to. So we've got it all the way on the back of this one, all the way on the back of this one. Now I'm going to take a couple of cuts right here because I'm on the top of the cuff now. Follow that around. If you can, make a cut all the way around. Same angle, still perpendicular to the wood. I'm straight up and down, and this is going to allow me to then come back here to the pants and cut off just a little bit. Shows there's a separation between the cuff and the pants. And I'll show you how we finish that up in just a second. But I just want to cut off these so you get an idea of where I'm going. So when it comes time to clean it up, make that cut so that the wood will come off. That stop cut is invaluable when you're carving. Okay, come off of there. Any other questions you have, put them in the chat. I'll check them here in just a sec. Okay. Now, what I do when I'm done with that, I take a wide number 9 or a number 11, about that wide. That's about, now I want to say that's 3/8. It might be about a 3/8. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some definition to this cuff. Here's this cuff, and if you know men's pants at all, it's not a flat cuff. It has a little bit of a dip to it when you wear the pants. And so it's high here, low in the middle, high out here. To do that, just take your gouge. You're going across grain, so make sure that gouge is sharp. Go and make a cut. If you have to make two, that's okay. What you're trying to do is just give it some definition. Give it some shape. So it looks natural to have that cuff break like that. Men's pants, generally when they break at the toe, you have a break right here. So the pants come down, then have a little break, fold, and then come back down. So we're doing that on the cuff where we're leaving room. And then when you want to, go back in, and with your V-tool, I'm going to clean that up real quick. With your V-tool, come in here and just make some scratch marks. They don't have to be deep. It makes them look like these things are folding over on top of each other. Makes it look like those folds are going under and around each other, just to give it some little bit more of definition. Be careful how you do this. You get it over here, you'll break off the edges, but it just provides another detail for your pants. So that's what we're doing there. We're just providing some little detail. Angle of the light isn't right. There we go, maybe better. You get an idea of what it looks like. I would normally do that on both of those pants. So that's one of those details you can do on your own. You know how to do it. Clean up, come back with your gouge, come back with your V-tool. Okay, legs are just about the same size. This one is not quite as small as I want, so I'm going to take a few more minutes just to trim that down. A little bit more. All right, nobody's talking or asking questions, so I'm assuming I'm either doing it right or you've fallen asleep already. So either way, let me know if you got questions or comments. I'll listen to comments. May not agree with you, but that's all right.
I'm too busy carving, Eric.
Are you? All right. That works too. That's why we're here. I'm not going to sing to you, so don't want me to sing. All right, leg is still a little bit thicker, so I'm going to go in and get a little more aggressive on taking off with some chips. Again, all I'm doing with these is just making these legs about the same size. From back here, they look pretty good. I know from front to back, this one looks a little bit thicker than that one, but it's not bad, and both legs don't have to be perfectly matched. So I'm going to go ahead and leave them there. I can come back with all these little details. I can add all kinds of wrinkles. Back here on the back where the leg is, about right here, I'm going to put in a notch. It's the back of the leg. So you got that, again, a break of those pants. I've got a couple of wrinkles I'm going to make go down from that cut. And one down and one up. So they just look like wrinkles back there. And I don't want to have them too deep, and I don't want to have too many. But I want that thing, that break right there, to look like it's got wrinkles right there. So about where the knee is, about where the knee would be on the leg, you have put in a couple here. And you can do them with a knife. If you want them a little softer, you can take a soft V. Get too many tools laid out here. I can't find none of them, even though they're laying right in front of me. You get a soft V, which is one of those V's that has a V, but it doesn't have a real sharp point at the bottom. And you can put in a few of those as you carve along. Okay, it's depending on this guy. You know, if he's a guy that goes out on a date with the ironed up clothes, or does he just pull them out of the closet? You can get a little softer cut right there for a wrinkle. Good little tool to have. I got a couple of them this size and a much bigger one. Anyway, we would do that for both sides too. So the knees over here, wherever they're going to be. All right, I'll let you turn that into homework. That'll be a good homework for the next 2 weeks. I want to ask you a quick question because somebody brought that up at our carving meeting the other night when I was talking about this class. How do you feel doing a little bit and then waiting for 2 weeks? Does it sit there and look at you, want you to work on it, or are you wanting to? Would you all want to change to every week or something different? I'll open the floor for discussions. If you're okay with what's going on, let me know. If you want to do it every week, let me know. If you don't, let me know.
Dave likes it every 2 weeks.
Dave Wilcox likes it every 2 weeks. 1 vote for keeping it the same.
That's me too, Tommy.
Okay, Tommy, you like it that
I'm
way?
slow.
Okay.
I'm okay with every 2 weeks too.
Okay. Reason I was asking is school's over. I'm debating whether I want to go back and do substituting next year. It doesn't pay much, but at least it's flexible, and I don't have to go in if I don't want to. It's not like they give me a set schedule for the next 2 weeks. I got to hold to it. I go in the days I want to. I didn't know whether I'm doing more classes this summer than I've ever done before. That helps a little bit with the bottom line. And I didn't know whether I needed to just keep with the subbing or if I needed to change it to every week and then start doing more classes and making money. So it looks like the votes are going for keeping it the way it is. Looking at
You can do it however you want to, Eric. We'll still be there.
right, but I don't want to change then lose the 8 or 10 of you that I got coming, and then I'm trying to chase more people to come to the new change. So right now this works for me. I'm not used to doing this every 2 weeks. I've took a couple classes through Wood Carving Academy, and it was very frustrating to wait 2 weeks or another week before you get started on it, because I'm a finisher kind of guy. I want to get in there and get it done because I see it. I got all these carvings sitting out here that I'm working on, and I want to get them all done, and I can't do them all at the same time. So having to wait 2 weeks on something like that, I didn't know if anybody felt the same way I did, where like, no, come on, let's go, move it. So anyway, sounds like the consent.
I think for me, it's fine because I can do other carvings in between. And I see this as an instructional class that I'm learning different lessons that you're teaching. And so I don't see it as I can't carve anything else in between. And it also gives me an opportunity to get out, do the yard work and the other things I need to do in between, and look forward to a class coming down on a set date.
One of my other club members had said, well, that gives me an opportunity I did this one in class. I'm going to go cut a couple more, and I'll do those and leave at the same spot we left this, so that when we come to the next 2 weeks later, I got 3 of them. So I'll work on this one in class and catch up as much as I can, go back and watch the videos and do 2 more to help out and catch up. So anyway, sounds like everybody's all got different things going on, and we'll just keep it the same because we're used to that. Sound good?
Sounds good
to me.
All right. I'm going to cut off this arm, or start cutting into this arm just like we did here. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do the front, and then we'll work on the back of the arm. But we will work on both of them together. But I'm going to do the same thing here. Last time I did it with a knife. I'm going to show you how to do it with this big V tool that I have from File. I've had these things for quite some time, and I don't use them often as I want to. But anyway, I'm going right in the elbow, and I'm going to make a deep cut. It helps if I'm on the camera. Right in the elbow, and I'm just making a deep cut. And I can't cut deep enough because by the time the wing gets in the wood, I'm still not as deep as I want. But I'm just in the front of that arm, the front of this part of the arm, down to the hand. Okay, so you get an idea of where I'm going because I've cut fairly deep inside there. Come back with a knife. I like a short, fat knife on this one. This one's short, fat. I mean, look how thick that is, because it doesn't bend. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right at the top of the hand, and I'm going to make a fairly aggressive cut, about 1/4 of an inch. Come to the corner of the elbow, do the same thing with that. Cut, cut, cut. I'm basically 2 parts of the triangle, then I'm going to cut this way for the 3rd part of the triangle. So I just come in here, start cutting off that under that arm. Most of this is going to come off anyway, so I don't have to worry about straying too far. But all I'm doing is making this cut for the front of the arm. And whatever tool you use to remove a lot of wood, the hogging part of it, you can see how deep we got in there. That's what we want to do. I'm preserving the hand and the belt, but I'm going to come down here and take off some of this front. So just, not many whacks. It's not like Lizzie Borden with 40 whacks on her parents, but I'm going to make a couple of whacks here. Trimming that front out, so I've got a rounded body here. I can't get rounded yet until I've cut out a lot of this. And so sometimes you get to an awkward angle and you only want to do one piece. Fishtail gouge does a really good job at doing that. So I'm just going in, fishtail gouge. If you want to buy one of those, everybody sells them and everybody makes them, so there's all kinds of different styles. I don't have a preference over one or the other. So again, I'm not here to sell you tools. I think you know how you carve better than I do, so me telling you got to have this tool would not make a lot of sense. So I'll tell you what I use. You will use whatever you want. Some people do this all with a knife. I couldn't do it. Finger thing, remember? All right. Trim off a little bit of that front. Okay, I'm still not down into the pocket yet. Not sure I want to do anything with that pocket just yet. Not until I'm ready for it. Okay, so hopefully I'm getting close to matching on both sides. That's what I want. I don't necessarily need everything to match up, but if I do that, I know which one I can change along the way. I have them matched up, and then I can see which one I want to leave fat or skinny or pulled back or whatever. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing to the back. First off, I'm going to bring this part up right here from the corner of the elbow up to the top of the shoulder. So the top of the shoulder is about right here. So I just want to get that angle right. And I want to get this one just a little bit. I don't need to take off much, but that's where the belt is going to be. Okay, I'm going to come back in here with this guy again. My file. And make that cut from here to here. And what I'm going to do is, you see I came in some on this one, and I'm going to do the same thing here. So what I'm going to do is from this point of the bottom of the sleeve, get my hand out of the way, from this point to here, I'm actually going to bring it back to about right here. So I want to make sure that what I'm doing, this thickness here is about the same as this thickness here. If I'm not sure, just want to make sure I got it. I have about that much, and I have about that much. It looks about okay. So I'm going to come in about that same spot, cut right there, and then follow that bottom over to that sleeve. So I'm going to follow that bottom over to that sleeve. I didn't go very straight, but that's okay. We'll get there. So that sets in that arm. And I'm going to bring some of this. I went up and then I'm going to bring it over. So it sets that arm in where I need to go. I want to take off some of this wood around this arm and thin it down. Knife from that point right there, right in that groove. And then up at the top, make that cut there as well. And I'm going to take my fishtail gouge and I'm just going to nibble that away. Be careful when you're doing this because it gets caught up, and then if it slams through, you got a lot of cuts over here on the arm that you got to clean up. So again, it's easier to clean it up if you don't put it in there. If you don't make a mess, you don't got a mess to clean up. Got it? So basically what I'm doing is sticking his elbows out behind his body. So the elbows are right here, the body's in here just a little bit. We'll thin some more out right here, but it just removes it. I'm going to grab a bigger fishtail because I want to take off a lot here in a minute. And this one I sharpened yesterday, the other one I didn't. So that's nothing worse than a guy preaching sharpening and then doesn't sharpen his own tools. What a mess. Okay, what I'm trying to do now is trying to take off this bulk back here on the back that I don't need between the arms, because he's gonna pooch his belly out a little bit, and that sways his back. So I can take off some wood here. Just be careful which way you're going, because sometimes that wood wants to split, and you may need some of that wood that you split off. So you see how we're getting kind of a sway up here? This is what we're looking for. Okay, take a little bit more off the sides, under the arms. I like this fishtail gouge because I can cut this way, and then I can turn it over and cut that way too. So it comes in handy, I'll tell you. Okay, we're making some progress on this fella. Am I going too fast?
No, it's looking good.
I guess you could always, when I put it on the web, it'll be on the web and on YouTube in a few days, but always slow it down. Or if you're like me, you're like, okay, that's going too slow. Speed it up, trying to listen to some folks. Some of these folks sound real funny when you speed them up to 1.75. I'll try not to do that to you.
Hey,
Remember that?
Eric, can you give us an overview of what you're carving again? You're kind of off screen.
This guy or the carving part that I'm doing?
No, the part that you're carving right now.
Right here at the back. So we
Yep,
took off.
that's what I want to see.
Out here, we took off some more out here. We trimmed here last week, and we're going to trim here this week. Sorry,
Okay, perfect.
I tell myself there's my dot, and then I lose it among all these chips, and I forget what I'm doing. I apologize. It's a fault of mine. I used to tell myself I'm not conceited. Conceit's a fault, and I'm not, and I'm perfect. But I know that was a joke. All right, what I'm trying to do is just get those arms stuck back in there. So I need to take off more because his arm is real skinny down here. So I'm just gonna use this fishtail gouge because it's a big long blade. Flip it upside down and cut that off back there. So I'm just trying to get this arm and back this same shape and size that I want. Okay. If I get off screen, just let me know. Just say center or something like that, and I'll understand what you're saying.
It was more about seeing how much you've taken off and getting the overview picture.
Gotcha. That's the bad thing when you go to teaching on something you've done so many times, like I've made half a dozen of these guys or more. It's really hard to have a sympathy for someone who's following you along, because I'm just sailing along and I'm having a good time carving, then I realize, wait a minute, I'm leaving everybody in the dust and I'm not showing them what I'm doing. So not a good thing. I apologize. Okay.
Not a problem.
Okay, we got those arms. We got a little bit more to take off this front one here. Go a little bit deeper and take that off to make it match on the other side. I don't have to make it match, but I'm going to just for right now, because that way I know where I can make some changes. All right. So we've cut off the belt here in the back. So let's write that back in before we get too far away. I don't want to lose my reference points. So if you're a man or a woman who puts your hands in your pockets a lot, you know that wherever your belt is, your hands are below that. So this hand is roughly about right here. This one's the same way. It's roughly about right there. We already carved a profile to this one. We haven't done it to this one. Anyway, bring that belt. The bottom of the belt is where the sleeve is. Sorry, that ain't right. I didn't draw it in the right spot. This is the pocket. His hand does this in that pocket. So if you stand up and look at your pants, what you're going to see is where the belt comes through. It's got to be above the hand. Because your pocket, somewhere like this, and you've got the lip of the pocket goes somewhat like this. You can do that on this if you want. Just have this right here. That's the lip of the pocket, which means this is his arm. hands in here, and
Eric?
that bulge of the pants. Yeah,
Can't see what you're doing.
gotcha.
Hey,
I'm putting a few drawings in here. Here's his arm. This is the sleeve. So his arm is smaller than the sleeve. This is the cloth on the outside. Stops right here, right? Got a cuff right there. If you don't want the hand fully hidden, you can leave enough room at the top of this pocket so where the belt is, and the pocket goes from the belt down to the inseam, or the out seam, right? Seam of the pants goes right here. So where this comes from is the bottom of the belt down to that seam. That's the pocket, which means you have an arm sticking in there or a hand. The hand comes down here like this, and the cloth does this. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when a person puts their hands in their pockets, they don't always match up cloth to cloth. Sometimes there's an arm or a piece of the hand sticking out that way. You have to make that decision whether you want it like that or not. I'm doing a couple of cowboy carvings in another class, and everybody's doing some of them are taking the hand and tucking the thumb into the belt. Some are tucking it into the belt buckle. Some are tucking it all the way into the pocket. Some are just hanging the thumbs on the pockets. Variety of different ways to do that. I wanted to give you those opportunities, whichever way you want. Here's the top lip of the pocket. If you don't want that, make the top lip of the pocket right here. Either way, that's where the bottom of the belt is. And this is where the top of the belt is. Can you see that? Am I drawing that right? Here's the bottom of the belt. Here's the top of the belt. Usually you have about 5 loops on a men's pants. So I'm going to put one right here. We'll put a couple back here and hide a few in there. Does that make sense? Did I explain that well enough?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All I'm doing right now is putting in the loops, which are going to be some... Drawing on a crooked surface is really hard sometimes. All right, let's go straight and straight instead of crooked. So there's the belt for the front of the body. If you project this line or the other one on the other side through, right there at the elbow is about right where this is going to go. This guy's got this thing, he's got the belly going on. So I'm on the back. I'm going to do the belt like that, because if you follow that line right here, all the way over, and it's going to come down, that's the bottom of the belt, the top of the belt rather. So the bottom's going to do this. And then we're going to do that over here. Here's the top of the belt right here. It follows over here and matches that one. This bottom follows over here and matches that one. So we've made it about where we need to. I don't have a lot of room in here, so I'm going to give him one belt loop. That's all he needs. Okay? Does it make sense?
Yes.
If you need to draw that, go ahead. I'll give you a couple of seconds. I need a drink of water. Does the lighting seem okay today? I did a couple of different things and played around with them. I'm hoping it's okay.
Looks good to me.
Good.
Okay. All right. So now what you got, if we, let me do it in ink so you can see it better. It might show up a little bit better that way. Okay, got a belt. You have to make some decisions now. We'll carve in the pockets here in just a minute. What is he wearing? Is this a sweater? Is it a shirt and tie? Is it another shirt and tie? This guy's got a sweater on. Start thinking about where you're going to do that, because here in the next few cuts, we're going to be there. This guy has a bow tie on. This feller got him a pair of suspenders. So Alexander, if you needed a picture, do you know how to do a screenshot? You can take a picture of that. That might help a little bit. I think I sold one or two others that had different sweaters. This one I like because of the pattern on the sweater. Anyway, that's where we're at, where we want to go. As you can see, every one of these fellows is different in face, different in clothing, different in pants and shoes, boots, whatever, belts. All that's slightly different, but it's all following the same pattern. They all have pencil necks. Anybody remember that song Pencil Neck Geeks by the Ramones from the 70s, early 80s? Am I showing my age?
You're dating yourself.
I'm dating myself, yep. Well, I just turned 62 here a few months ago, so I have no problem enjoying my age. I'm glad I'm 60 and I'm still as handsome as I am, so I'm gonna call it good at that. So that's where we want to go, and that's where we're headed. So in terms of wrinkles, the crotch flap, whatever you call that, that covers the zipper, what kind of suspenders, sweaters, shirts, jeans. I mean, this guy could wear checkered pants and polka dot shirt. He's just goofy. So when I came up with this thing, I thought, you know, okay, let's have a little bit of fun with him. Let's make him about as goofy as he can get. Yeah. Unless you throw them on the floor and break them. Try not to do that too often.
Can you do a bow tie with the suspenders?
You can do whatever you want. You want to do one of those?
I'd love for you to.
Okay. Let me. Well, I don't think we're there yet. So we're still working on this because we're going to spend a lot of time right here because I would imagine most of you are not experts at doing faces. Am I right?
No, not exactly an expert.
Not an expert? Well, hopefully after this you'll be a little better. And I'll show you how to do that. This guy's got a sweater, but I didn't put any pattern on here. It's got a pattern around the edges, the lip, the ribs, whatever. I didn't put any pattern here. So this guy might end up with an ugly sweater for Christmas. And just, they got ribs here, and then there's I don't know, ugliest. Last year the CCA had a competition, the ugliest cowboy. And I wanted to put in a carving that showed an ugly sweater, cowboy wearing an ugly sweater with a mirror right here, or with him holding a mirror. And so the ugliest cowboy is the one looking in the mirror. So, and then I realized, I'm going against some of the best in the country, and even if you win the $1,000, you don't get the carving back. So, I don't have a hard time selling my carvings, but some of them I don't like selling because, I like the way they turned out. I don't know that I could recreate it exactly like that, and I like this one so much. But anyway, moving on. I'll talk more about that later. All right. So you're figuring out what you want here. In the meantime, we're going to spend a few minutes getting his pocket sized up. This part inside this black part right here is bulging out. So I want to remove the edges so that they don't show too much. All I'm doing is just taking my knife and rolling it away from that edge. And so I'm just trying to leave that rounded right up here at the belt too. I want to take a little bit off, but I don't want to cut that part off right there. So I cut a little bit and then cut away from it. So all I'm doing is adding pockets or adding bulge to the pocket. One of the things I could do is take this soft gouge. It's not real pointed. Move my hand away, maybe it'll focus. And again, maybe not. I could go around that with this soft one or with the gouge. I could do it with a real gouge and just go around it and soften that edge where the pocket is. Get up here and the grain changes. I got to go down. So it leaves that pocket sticking out. I want to do the same thing over here. I did a little bit of it last time. Come back in here. make those pockets stick out a little bit. Now this next step is going to depend on what you want to do. Do you want thumbs sticking out? Do you want the hand fully in the pocket? Do you want a little bit of skin showing? Let me do one of each. I'll do a little bit of the skin showing over here, and then I'll do the thing fully encapsulated in here. I got to be careful because this wood is splitting right here. I don't know if you can see that. There's a split right there. Normally down here not a problem, up here not a problem, right here it's going to be a problem. Because if I don't cut it right, that's going to split off and I'll lose either this side or both of them. So I'm going to have to be real careful. And so we're just take that knife again and round it off away from it. We're going to take some of this off as well so that his belly comes out and then it pooches in about right here. So we'll play around with that a little bit. Okay? Again, rounding as much as I can before I get the carving on it. Doing the setup. Going around both of them. Now, before I do this, I want to at least do some shaping on the arms. And so again, I love these guys and gals who do flat plane carving because I started off doing that and it's wonderful. It has fewer cuts and you get these long planes, just one plane, one plane, one plane. We're going to follow that a little bit. So right here, marker. Right here, we're going to leave that as a center line, the high line of the arm. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife and I want to go down to this corner on the inside. So I'm just going to go down 45 degrees and make a couple of strong, solid cuts right in that corner, just like that. So I just made a couple of cuts. Okay, now if you don't like the flat plane, you can then come in and soften that a little bit right here, going down to the same way, but you're taking off less wood and you're making it look round here. Up to you what you want to do, if you want the flat plane look or not. I'm going to do the same thing back here. The same thing back here. I'm going up the back of the arm with a strong flat plane cut. I'm not cutting quite over to the line, but I'm cutting in the arm. Same thing down here, and again, I'm only going to go down to where that pocket is. I don't want to go down any further. So I'm actually going to bring this in a little bit. I'm going to go in and then curve down to that. So I'm going to go in and then curve down to that pocket right there. As much as you need to, and then take off the sharp edges on the back. We'll indent them a little bit later, but I want to take those sharp edges right there. So if you look at it from the side, it starts to look like an arm. We got to take off that sharp part, but this, again, what we do from here up depends on what we do here. So if I take all of that up, I don't have a collar. So I got to be careful with doing that. I can trim a little bit from the back of the arm up to the head, roughly, that's part of the shoulder, and I can trim a little bit of this here at the front of it. We'll trim and round it again. But we've done that for these parts of the arm. Let's do that for this one. So we got that sharp line there. Go down to that cuff and stop. That cuff right there, stop. On the inside, we want to go up. Here in the back, we went down. On the inside, we want to go up. So I'm going to put that right at that belt and go to the corner. These are flat plane cuts that show very little facets. Very little of the facet. So you can see how that's flat, 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 flat. You don't need a lot of details. You don't need to take the arm and put 47 folds in here or wrinkles or whatever. You just need a few. You're giving the impression, and that's what the old flat plane masters would do. They weren't worried about detail on every single piece, 47 of these. They were worried about getting it in there. And that way we've got the arm cut in. Again, we can round as much as we want. And so I'm going to round a little bit because this arm is kind of wide. And so I'm going to take off a little more here in the front. I'm going deeper in there. Come on, hang on to it. deeper in there, and then come back and cut that off. So it moves the arm back a little bit, and it moves this back a little bit too. Same thing with this one right here. Take another cut inside the crook of that elbow, and then cut it off. Where am I cutting off? Come on. Right in there, and then I'm cutting off right to that crook of the elbow. So I've got an arm coming out. Now this is going to allow us to round the belly too. We're going to round that here just a little bit, not right now. So I'm going to take off as thick as this arm is back here. I want to take off a little bit of that. Again, I'm still leaving enough so that I've got a collar up there. I'm just thinning those arms down just a little bit. I got a high point out here on the elbow that I just want to nick off. Just take a little bit of nick here, nick there, and it doesn't make it look quite as sharp. Now, feel free to put as many wrinkles in there as you want. I'm not here to tell you not to do that. I'm telling you how I'm going to do it. So now I'm up at the top of the arm and I want to go into the shoulder. So I'm just taking a little bit just to head. I'm heading that way, but I'm not getting there yet. And then that ridge right there, soften that ridge just a little bit. Somewhere right in here, depending on what we do, we talked about, what do you want, Tommy? Suspenders and a bow tie? I think that's what you asked me for.
That's what she said.
All right, so now if you can see it, I got that elbow, that shoulder going in like that, and I got it going in over here. I'll trim a little bit more off both sides because I haven't taken much off these arms, but you see what I did. I've got a cuff here. Here's the cuff of the shirt. And I'm going to have the cloth of the pocket right there, which means here's his hand. Here's his hand right here. The cuff of the pocket comes down to here, which means right here is the seam on that pants. Don't make it a straight line. Make it a little bit crooked because it goes along with those folds. But here's the edge of the pants, go all the way up to, which is underneath here, the edge of that belt right there. Okay. So I'm going to make one cut at the top. Sorry, at the bottom of this cuff on this sleeve. I want to make one cut right here and one cut right here. And I don't need to go real deep, but I'm just going to go deep enough so that you'll see it. Cuff right to here. Okay, now if I make this cut right here at the bottom of the sleeve, I make that over, and I go to the bottom of that cuff, what that's going to do is give me some negative space right there. Because underneath here, I got a hand going into the cloth, and I have some space left between the hand and between the sleeve and the pants. So it looks like that's going in there. Especially when I come back here and I've made that cut, and I'm just going to take a little sliver off right there. Not much. I just want to relieve that sleeve from the hand. You can't really see it now because it's a really tiny cut, but I made a cut here and a cut here, and I'm going to take that off right there. So that puts that sleeve up behind these pants. Okay. Yep, I need to make that a little bit deeper so you can see it. Right there and right there. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to make that negative space right there in that pocket so that I could show that the hand's in there. I made one cut right here at the top of, or the bottom of the cuff. I'm going to deepen that just a little bit more. And then I'm going to take another cut that goes from the belt to the seam. That's the top part of the pocket. Now, a lot of pockets, and on the front, most pockets are not sewn around here. They're sewn across here, and then from the inside, that's what gets sewn in, that lining. In the back pocket with jeans specifically, you have a line across here, and then it's stitched and stitched around because that doesn't bulge much unless you shove a whole lot of stuff in there. Whereas this one will bulge. So I made that cut. I'm going to come along and slice that one just like I did the one by the cuff. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to create that hand. That hand is right here, and I got to take off the space here. So right here, the top of this cuff goes all the way over to the belt, which means the arm is right, the hand in there is right here. So I'm going to take off this space right here to make it look like the space between your hand and the belt right where your pocket is. And then we're going to take off a little bit of the hand down here so that this will be the hand right there, and this is what we're cutting off. Am I going too fast or hiding it or what?
No, that's good.
You see where I'm talking?
Yeah.
I think I understand.
Okay, let me show you what it looks like, because I'm gonna do it on this hand, but I'm not gonna do it on the other one because I don't want them to be symmetrically. What I don't want is when my carving's done is you split it down the middle and you can't tell whether one's the right or left. All right, so we made those cuts. I'm gonna do this one first. So right here at the bottom of the hand, this is where the pocket is. Actually, let me trim that down just a little bit more. I want that rough edge off of there. Let me trim that up. I think it'll look better when we get done with it. I'm just trimming the really sharp edge off of there so that it looks like the pocket's bulging out without having to take off a lot of wood. So you see how his hand is bulging there? Bulges that whole pocket. Okay, so I'm going to go right here. His hand is laying in that pocket. His hand is laying like this. So this part right here is right here. This little crook of the arm, he puts his hands into his pocket, and everything is covered all the way up to here. And then this is what we're putting here. So this little crook right here, we're going to put that right there. I don't have a lot of room, but I'm going to make one cut and one cut, and then I'm going to take that off. Okay. So you can see where his hand goes into that pocket right there. So the hand, his cuff is sticking out here, or his cuff is here. This is the hand right there. And this is the pants. I can clean that up a little bit, but that's where his hand is going. And now we do that on the top as well. I'm going to nibble this one away. This one's easy because it's at the bottom of the hand. You're not going to look too much at that one. I'm trying to get it in there and get that little chip out of there. But this one you're going to be able to see real clearly. Now if you notice, since we cut that in, we got a bulge here on this sleeve that we got to take out. Not a problem. That was easy, wasn't it? One little cut and it's out of there. Okay. So now when I come up here, I want to make a scoring mark here on the hand part, and I want to make I took my glove off. I'm going to cut myself short as the world, embarrass myself. Put my glove on. I can tell you no teacher likes to embarrass him or herself. If I'd have made that one cut there, I'm going to make this cut right here. And I'm not going real deep, because if I go too deep, the whole thing will pop out. I'm moving at about 1 millimeter an hour, so I don't want to take off much. Trim that off. That trims off what I painted it with, what I marked it with the marker. And then I got the hand right here. I'm going to flip it upside down, right side up. Take that off too. You might have to run this back and forth a few times on the video to see it. And there's a couple more cuts I need to make to trim that up. But all I'm doing is taking off this excess space between where the belt is, because see the belt comes right here, it's going to go right across here. And this is going to be part of the belt up here. So I don't want to take off a whole lot here, but I do want to take off enough that it shows at the end of that sleeve. Once we, let's do this. Let's take off that sharp ridge so you can see it. So there's the sleeve coming down. There's the top of the cuff and the bottom of the cuff. There's the under part of the hand. Where do all those fuzzies keep falling in there and get in there? Sometimes it's just better to just get them out of there like that. It looks better. So that's the hand. This is the sleeve. This is the top of the hand. Now across the top of that, I'm going to have the belt comes here. The rest of the belt comes right here. So we got to take a little bit, no we don't, we got to go back down here. A little too far. Got to take a little sliver. There's a triangle right here, a rectangle that I want to take out. So I'm going to go, I'm not even going to cut it, I'm just going to push in, push in, push in, and take it off. Leaving enough for the belt there. And separating the sleeve and the hand right here. Take a little bit more off of there to separate it. A little sliver there. And then I put the belt back in. Okay, so now let's finish that cuff because we only carved it over so far, so we're going to carve the rest of it here. And we're going to take a little bit of that hand off, just right there. And then we're going to carve over here. So lay up on that line and just follow it along and push. And that makes an indentation, a stop cut. And then I go here and trim that up. Make that line again on this side. And we'll round this. It's really flat here, so we want to round it by taking off this corner here. And this corner here. Don't need to take off much, just need to take off enough so that it looks like there's a hand going into that pocket. And then trim everything else up because this has a weird angle right here. We'll cut that out of there. Round that sleeve, take off the harsh edges. Okay, so here's the sleeve, comes down, and there's the cuff. And I should have a little bit of space back in here. When I paint this, I'll put some dark down in here, and it'll look like a shadow, which will accentuate the fact that there's an undercut right there. It'll show up a whole lot more. There you go, you can see that. Same thing. So you see that hand right here, cuff. So this spreads out a little bit down here and spreads out a little bit down here. So we'll take a little bit more of that off on the sleeve side, not on the cuff side. See how that makes that go right down into that sleeve? Take off the fuzzies, get rid of the fuzzies. Again. Okay, so there's that sleeve and that cuff right there. I want to take a little bit more off. This is a whole lot of adjusting. You do something, you see what that does. You do something else, you make sure you keep it straight. There's a lot of that. So now the hand here is real flat. So I'm going to try to give it some texture. So it goes down into that pocket. And on the edges it should be round as well. So I'm going to take off that harsh edge right there on the hand. When we paint it, it'll be obvious because that's the only thing in that area that'll be painted flesh color. Everything else will have the color of whatever cloth you want. So it'll show up a little bit better. But anyway, that's where he goes. He goes with his hand into his pocket. The cuff, take that edge off there. Let me get these marks off because they're distracting. So there's his cuff. and there's his hand. And what we'll do back here, we'll put a couple buttons back here, one button at least. We'll make a slit, like where the gentlemen, we're on the cuff where it buttons. We'll make a slit down here, and you'll have a button right there. It makes it look more like a sleeve, right? You can see that. It's those little details that people enjoy when they pick up your carving. They say, oh, that's cool, because they see the fact that you got a little bitty button and you got a little bitty piece of negative space right here that when you take it out, it looks right. I mean, they're looking down at that. I was teaching a class here at my house the last couple of days, and one of the carvers had done a lot of hands in his pockets because he's a cowboy carver. So he's done a lot of them where the cowboy has his hands in his pockets linked with the thumb. So the thumb is sticking in the pocket and the rest of the hand is sticking out. Anyway, so that looked pretty good because he had done some of those before. There we are. There's that arm coming down, the cuff, and this is going to be his hand. We don't need a whole lot of detail on the hand. That'll be evidenced by what we paint. Okay. 2:30. Yes. Right on time. Okay. Let's work on this belt a little bit. I don't know. Hang on. Before we do that, let's find our knife and let's do some more rounding. So we got a little bit of rounding here on the pocket. Mostly this is removing lines that I don't want on there because the lines can get distracting and not let you see what you're trying to see. So I'm just minutely taking off a few chips to round that pocket. So let me take off this line right here. Now also understand the hand doesn't have to go into the pocket. It could be bulging outside the pocket and all you got is the fingers in there. So you got an idea now what that pocket looks like. And the line, the crease line goes all the way up in here and tucks into where the belt is. They'll match right up there at about right here. So there's the crease line for the pants. There's the bulge for the pocket. Let's work on that belt a little bit. B-tool. I want to mark in the top line because that's the uppermost edge of that, the upper limit. Keep in mind when you do these, you want that line to match up with that one, so don't drive it down here. Drive it up there towards that elbow because that's what this is going towards. Goes right in there with that elbow. And then this one goes and matches it. Okay, so then we got one belt loop here and one belt loop here. Tommy, you said you wanted suspenders. Well, this guy's going to have a suspenders and a belt. How's that for goofy? All right, so now I've got one belt loop. I'll put the cut in there, trim it to the outside so it looks like that thing sticks up above the belt. You see a lip here. Do the same thing to the other side. Cut in there, cut on the outside, and stick that belt loop up, and then across the bottom. Make sure that is flat, and make sure that you brought the pants to it. Rather than just look at, you don't want them to look like they're glued on. Right now they do. Well, if I do it like this, take that line off. If I keep them from looking like they're glued on, because you got a high point here and a high point here, there's going to be a high point down here because nothing's covering it. But there's a shirt covering this part. So what I'm going to do is take off that upper edge. And what it does is it blends it in so that it looks like it's tucked up under that shirt. Details. It's the details that make or break a piece of art. If something goes under something, it ought to look like it goes under something. If it goes on top, it ought to look that way. And if not, then you got to figure out what you're doing and how you can get it that way. So here's that empty spot on the pocket that I talked about. Bottom of the belt, this comes up here. There's the line for the pants or the line for the belt and the line for the pants. This belt goes up under that shirt slightly. So I'm going to make a stop cut there, and I'm going to put it up under the shirt. All the way into the corner. Take that V-tool and do the same thing to the other side. Try not to take off a lot of wood because I want some wood to come over here, and depending on whether the suspenders come to the front of the belt or you want them to come out to the side, you got to leave room for that. So here we're doing it on the bottom. This thing needs sharpening, so we're going to switch. It's a good thing about having one of each. You can always switch real quick and sharpen later. I don't like to stop and sharpen. It's just one of those things I'll sharpen them all at the same time. But I'm not going to stop what I'm doing. I'm in a groove. I don't want to get out of that groove and have to go sharpen something. Okay. Follow those lines all the way around. Don't go through your belt loop. You want the belt loop to stay on top of the belt. So we're going to follow that around, which means I probably should have cut that in to start with. No problem, we'll get it done now. Okay. Do that belt loop just like we did the other one. Straight down both sides. Lay it down to the outside of them. Tuck it under. Same thing here. Make a stop cut down here. Tuck that up under the shirt. Trim it off. Clean it up. Okay, what we did over here where we tucked everything under the shirt, we're going to do that over there on the other side. Now, stop cut, cut up to it, and then flatten that belt where it's bulging right there. And right there. Now this belt buckle is kind of tricky, so we're just going to leave it alone for a while because we've got to figure out what we're going to do with the suspenders. Okay, so we got one arm done. Did I cut that or no, I didn't. Cut a little bit of sliver out of there to make it look like there's really that slit there where the cuff is buttoned. Yep, clean up a little bit of that hand right there. Okay. Fishtail gouge somewhere. I got rid of it, so I got the other. Alright. It's going to cut a little bit here, trim a little bit. I want to trim this so it looks like it's embedded in there. Just rounding that pocket a little bit more. Doesn't have to be much. You just got to make sure it shows that it's bulging, that his hand goes under there, and the observer will make the observation that that's where it's at. That's what it's doing. You don't have to necessarily tell them. In fact, sometimes it's best not to tell them. Let them discover it on their own, because once they discover a part of your carving, they're like, oh, just saw that. That's cool. That's when you know they're interested. Whether you make the sale or not, at least you got them thinking about it because you put those little details in there for them to discover. How many times have you done that on a painting? You look at a painting and you see all these little things that normally might not show up on their own, but you had time to look at it and you finally saw, ooh, I like that. Okay. Okay, round this one out a little bit more like we did the other side. one of the things I want you to understand that when you're carving this, there's no one only way to do it. I mean, you work around in whatever pattern you want, but a lot of times it's going to be dictated by what the wood tells you. And I got to be careful over here with this pocket, which I haven't finished yet, but I'm just shaping it. So let's finish that one. We're going to do this arm, what we did to this arm, we'll do it to that one. And these arms are kind of fat. I can go in here and I can take off more. In fact, I think I'll take off a little bit more here, a little bit more here, and a little bit more here, because see how thick they are? I don't necessarily want them that thick. So I can trim it out by taking more in the front, and then go down to that center cut where the folds are going to be. Come up to the shoulder and trim it a little bit. And then on this sleeve, come and take a little bit more as well. Alright, come out of there. So we thinned up that arm just a little bit. We'll add a few more wrinkles. That will add some shaping to it as well, make it look smaller. But we don't want to take off everything. We want to leave enough in there so at least he's got an arm, and at least it looks like it's where it's supposed to be, and it looks like it's supposed to be. And we got that a little bit trimmed out there. Okay. Okay, let's fiddle with this arm a little bit more. We started the last time we were here by making the arm. Now let's give it all the shape that it needs. Keep in mind what the other side looks like as well. Again, not everything has to be perfectly symmetrical, but they got to match to a degree. You don't want one shoulder up here and one shoulder down here unless that's what you're trying to portray. You're trying to portray that he's leaning or moving or whatever. You got to remember that what you're selling, the customer has to be able to pick up. Yeah, they'll find the little details on their own, but you're still selling a piece or trying to give it, get them interested in. Maybe it's just your grandkids are giving it away to or whatever. But you're trying to tell a story with this carving. What story are you telling? That's the question. Think about that as you're carving, because do you want him fat or skinny? Well, it's his first date, so or maybe even his second. But you're trying to tell a story. What do you want to tell? All I'm doing is trimming this arm up a little bit more. One problem is when you carve this way, you're going to want to go down and it'll split off. So you got to go up for the most part on the lower arm and down on the upper arm until you get to the bottom. On the bottom, I can go down. Or the back, sorry, not the back. On the back, I can go down because that's a different way of the grain running. I see a question in the chat, or at least a comment. Thanks, I got them. All right, cool. Glad you got those pictures. All righty then. Trimming this arm up a little more. Switch because I wanted a big cut back here, not to it be flat along that whole thing, so I switched to that fishtail gouge. And now what we're going to do, this arm is going to go straight down into here, so we're not going to add any details other than a cuff, and I'm going to put that cuff just right at the top of the pocket. So there's going to be a cuff right there. Take out a fishtail or a V-tool, make those two cuts. One, did I say two? I meant three, but it could be four. Okay, so the cuff sticks out above the sleeve, so we'll remove just a little bit of the sleeve right above the cuff. So it looks like the cuff is smaller, is larger than the sleeve. Do the same thing here. We'll cut a little bit off right there. Makes it look like that's not as quite as wide or as round as the sleeve is. Take off these cut marks on the saw. And if you look at your arms, they kind of look about the same size with the exception of right here where I haven't cut this side in that much. Look like about the same size, which is what I was looking for. Okay, little detail, put a couple of wrinkles right in the corner of that elbow. One straight across, a big one, smaller one underneath. And I usually go 2 or 3 on the sleeves. When I want it to add even more, I'll add them as a round, not as a sharp cut like that. Because when I do that with this way, it's one thing. When I do it with a softer V, see the difference in the cuts? They're not quite as pointed on the edges. So it looks like there's a few more. So you can add a few in here. Same thing over here. I got 3 cuts. 1, 2, 3. Then you make them a little bit longer or make one in between the other ones. And then come out with a softer gouge. Add a few more details. And I'll show you how we, show you a little bit later when we get to the finishing part, what we do to make that look like cloth, to make it look like it's supposed to be there. Quarter till 3. Clean up, take a minute to clean up a little bit. Cleaning a few cuts up here that I didn't on that belt. We started work on that sleeve and I didn't get around to doing that pocket, did I? Round that pocket. Take off those rough saw marks on there, and be careful of the split I got going on my piece of wood. I'm not going to worry about it too much because it's pretty much indented in there, but I still want it to be, I still want to be careful around there because I don't want it to fall off. It might look funny with half an arm and a pocket sticking out there. Okay, I'm going to make that triangular cut right there at the bottom of the sleeve. Go in, cut it out. So it looks like there's negative space under there between his sleeve and his pocket. Right in there. It's still at an angle I don't like. There we go. Okay, so here's the sleeve. We'll round that because it's a rounded sleeve. It's going around a rounded arm. So we're going to round that a little bit. And a little cut right there to show that this goes under the sleeve rather than, or under the pocket cover rather than just go there and stop. Take off these saw marks here. I forgot to do them a minute ago. We'll round that towards the bottom. Rather than this harsh line right here, I want to round that off. So I've got a high butt in the back, which means I'm probably going to need to bring this down a little bit more. So I'm going to come out with my fishtail gouge and I just want to take those saw marks off. I don't know about you, but saw marks bother me to death. So I like to take them off because I'm afraid if I don't, I'll forget them. And then I'm painting and I'm finishing, I'm going, wait a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by taking a short, stiff knife, and I just want to cut into that right at the top of the leg. I just want to make this deeper. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting like this to make it deeper, right in that crotch area. Okay, front and back. So I'm going to make this deeper, taking out a cut on both sides, because I want to move that crotch up a little bit. I don't want him to look like he's got droopy drawers. Maybe he hadn't changed his diapers or whatever, but I want to bring it up just a little bit to where it looks like his legs are longer. I'm still looking for long, skinny legs, although this guy's got some fat ones. I want to just trim that out. If you got a small enough V-tool, you could probably get in there with that. Just make sure it's sharp, because if it's not sharp, when you get in there and you don't cut it out right, you got a lot of fuzzies to clean out. So I'm going in here. I got a small V-tool. That one I said needed to be sharpened. So I'm just going in here with my knife, and I'm just going to trim that out inside there. I'm moving it up and trimming it out. Wonder where Peter is. He's been to every one of these things. Okay, so we moved it up a little bit. We hadn't got it moved up quite as much as we need to, but that'll also come part of it out when we do his buttocks. We'll get those cut in. Okay. Trimming the legs to meet this crotch area that I'm working with. See, what I'm looking at is the space between his belt, which is pretty high, but even higher in the back, and then what little room he has back here for buttocks. So let me take a little bit of this out. I'm going to go where I think the bottom of the buttocks are, which is about right here. And I'm going to go in and out. I'm not trying to take off a whole lot. I'm trying to make an indentation right there where the bottom of the butt is. Bottom of his cheeks. So more of an angular transition between the butt and the legs. So they come down and they drop in that way. I might be better off using a big gouge to do that. This is a big OCCT. I don't even know what size it is. I want to say it's 3/4 of an inch, might be 1 1/4 inches, rounded about a number 7. I'm going to go right here at his buttocks. Cut off a little bit more there. This is a useful tool, but it's got limited times you'll use it. There's just not many things you're cutting out this big with these little figures. So just take into consideration when you go to buy a tool, how many times you're going to use it versus what you paid for it. So if you're going to use it twice, is it really useful? Twice over a 10-year span of carving? I don't know. I've done that. I got another tool holder over here. Gave him a little bit, didn't give him much. So I'm going to take off a little bit up here, right below that belt. One cut here, and one cut here. All of this, primarily when you're doing this is eyeballing. This is looking at what's the best way to get that cut, and where it's going to go, and what am I going to use it with. Cutting across the belt at the top. Again, I'm still keeping in mind what I'm going to do with the suspenders. Because I started with a belt, and then we threw out the idea of suspenders, I said, and that seemed like a good idea. So let's see what we can end up with. They might look a little different than the ones hanging in somebody's closet. And that's okay. We can do different things that we want. Come off of there. I think we gave him a little bit more there. Let's trim that up some more. Right there. And over there. Take a little bit more back here on the buttocks. A little deeper. And then come into the middle of that. Take that off on both sides. Now, pants have a seam about right. Pants have a seam about right here. And in a pocket. So I talked about pockets a while ago, not having a lot of cloth on the bottom. These are going to be ones that are kind of sewn on. So I have pockets back there like that. He's got pockets up here. Got a belt back here and a belt in the front. Trim a little bit off of there. I see. Belt matches up. And what we have left is this and this. This is going to take us a while. I'll show you step by step what we do. He's got another seam right here. And then his pants, when we look at where the zipper is, men have another piece like this that comes in like that, that flap that just folds over the zipper. We'll figure out what we want to do with this. We'll figure out what we want to do with this. And we'll figure out what we want to do with this. Before you come back 2 weeks, today's the 15th, 7 is 26, so 29th. Think about what you want your guy to be, or draw it or whatever. Think about whether he's going to be wearing a sweater, button-up shirt, bow tie, suspenders, round belt buckle, square belt buckle, no belt buckle. Think about what you want him to look like. Think about how you want to carve that. Put that on there. If you got any questions, you can feel free to email me. I think I've shown everybody my information. If not, ericowensart.com or ericowensart@gmail. Instagram is Eric Owens Carver, all one word. Facebook is Eric Owens Carving, 3 words. So I want you to think about it, figure out what you want. How do you want to put wrinkles? How many you want to put? What kind of hairstyle does he have? Does he have any hair? Is he bald? You even got room in here to put a ball cap on if you really wanted to. we'd have to shorten the neck a little bit, but we can figure that out. Right now he's pretty stout with a lot of room up here and a lot of room here, so we could actually have, if we bring the collar down to here and go up here and got a collar, you follow that around. I'm drawing in pencil because I probably won't keep this drawing on here. If you figure that's where they go, then the collar tab comes up here, goes right over the top of that shoulder if we make him real skinny. And then if you really wanted to, you could put in a bow tie here. And then his suspenders would come this way. Does that make sense? Sort of, kind of?
Yep.
Okay. Questions? Or comments? Complaints, concerns?
Since I'm doing that head added on, do I try and get all of his collar in there before I start messing with the head and neck?
Yes. When you go ahead and cut that up. So if you've just got a piece of wood that's stopped there like this, there's the head, right? If
Yeah.
you stop that right here, okay, so this guy's got a really long neck. Now I could trim that down as much as I want. The more you trim down, because it's tapered, see how it's tapered in, the more you trim down, the less is going to sit in here. So I can do that one of two ways. I can make this hole bigger, or I could trim this. And whether I trim it lengthwise or roundwise, it depends. But right here, you're going to at least have an idea of where your collars are going to go. So let's say this is Steve, right? Talking.
Yes.
So let's say you want a collar. He's got a high collar up here. And then what happens is right here, you got the collar tabs. This is the top of the collar, which goes back like this. And so does that. So what you end up with is, hang on, you end up with an M here. So your M here with tabs.
Mm-hmm.
The tail's right there. That'll go around the back of the head. Here's the part that holds in the neck. And there you've got room to put a neck in here. So you can move this up, you can move this down, you can make this sit flat. So it sits like that. You can give him a little bit more of a neck. You can make this hole smaller, or bigger rather. Once you made a certain size, you can. You can make that hole bigger if you want. This is a 3/8, I think is what this size is. I may be wrong, but it's not. If I'm wrong, I'm not wrong by much. That would be where you get to play around with the head.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
You bet. So that's what we're going for. For those of you that are doing the head separately, I think, Steve, you might be the only one, maybe one other. But if that's what you're doing, then you've got options, just as you have options here.
Okay.
So I could bring his neck even further down and make the shoulders, this is the edge of the shoulders where they go in. So that's the top of the shoulder. If that's the top of the shoulder, then right around here is where the neck is, or the collar is, and then I could really leave some really big neck in there. But if that's where I put the shoulders, which is where we're headed right here, with as much as we cut off, then that would be the top of the shoulder and top of the other shoulder, and then it comes in and then goes up to the head. Again, individual choice. There's so many ways of doing these, and ever how creative you want to get on what you're doing, entirely up to you. You're carving. I'll show you how to do this. We'll finish this. I'll get close to that this next in 2 weeks, and then if we have time, I'll go ahead and show you how we'll cut that head. Because I imagine most of you have not done a head from a square block.
Yeah.
Maybe you have, I don't know, but
Well, I showed you the one I started.
right. So most people end up, you know, with something that's on this guy is just really just goofy looking, and that's okay. That's what this project is supposed to be. Seeing how far you can stretch the legs. I mean, if you look at how long his legs are, it's about as long as it all is all the way up to his head, which is not necessarily true. So
Yeah.
ordinarily, human anatomy, the male's body is 8 heads long, 8 heads tall. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. On a woman, it's generally about 7. So again, another one of those caricature measurements that we're stretching and doing whatever the heck we want to because it's our carving and we're going to do it the way we want. I'll show you how I do it. Follow that if you want. If you don't, no big deal. Find your own way and enjoy the way you've gone, because that's what this is about, is giving you the skills to be able to carve whatever you want. Whether it's a copy of something you've seen or a copy of something somebody else has done, the idea is I'll show you what I do, and I hope that includes a few skills that you can use along the way to carve whatever you want to carve, whether it's an Indian or a bug or a horse or a cottonwood bark building. I want to give you the skills necessary to be able to do that. Hopefully we're on that road.
Yes.
So I usually hang around to about 3:30, so you're more than welcome to hang around, ask questions, talk, whatever. I'll be here. I don't have any, I got to go to the store later today, but I don't have to go right now, and I'll hang out here with you and answer questions. I didn't switch camera much, did I?
Well, I had an appointment I gotta keep at 4:30, so I'm gonna sign off, but I appreciate it, and I will be back. We'll talk some more if you're okay.
Glad to have you with us. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Dave.
Have a good 2 weeks then.
I will. You too.
All right. Bye now.
See ya. Anybody out there?
Just me, but you can close me off.